Hey, welcome to Networking Star. This is the podcast where we explore journeys and find the people that help us learn to have, be, and do more in business. I am your host, Jeffrey Boyle, and today I have with me Tatiana Chamorro. She is joining us from Nicaragua, which is really exciting. She's got a place there, and she's also got a place in Dallas. And she's got a lot of titles. Let's make sure, Tatiana, I get these right. She's an entrepreneur, an expert marketer, a consultant, a public speaker, and a proud Latina. Great to be with you.
Thank you for having me, Jeffrey.
You bet. So right now you are you're joining us from Nicaragua, correct?
I am, yes.
So where are you at there?
I'm in Managua. That's the capital city. But we have the whole month planned. So every Thursday we leave to a different beach for the weekend. And we will be here for about 2 months for summer.
We were chatting just a little bit before we started it, and I haven't spent quality time in your country, but when we lived in Costa Rica, we were saying how I'd always have to go there to renew my visa. So it's crazy. You have to leave the country and come back in. So I got to go to Nicaragua, but the countries are very similar in proximity. And so I was just explaining how much I miss my morning walk with the mangoes and the monkeys. They are beautiful countries, and I'm sure it's a rough life that you have to go from beach to beach right now.
It's the life of entrepreneurship.
Well, it kind of brings up a point as we talk about it. I've talked in the past, and the one good thing that I could think of that came from COVID is people started to become digital nomads, meaning that it became more acceptable that you could go and be in really great places. You've got great internet there, and there's great internet all over the world now. How is it to kind of be that digital nomad, to go from country to country and still be able to make a living?
It's an interesting question. I don't fully consider myself a digital nomad because we live full time in Dallas. We're here just for the summer, but I will say that I think COVID gave us that, right? Understanding the ability of really traveling. The internet has been great in Nicaragua since 2006, right? We were just not taking advantage of it. So I think it just opened our mind to all these possibilities. And it also created business owners that are thinking now about digitalizing their business so they can actually do this. Because if you have everything working from your phone, you're able to actually manage, or your computer, from anywhere, right? So it was just something about thinking this way and thinking in the digital mindset to actually accomplish what was already possible 10 years ago.
It's always been available. I think it's just that now there's this understanding that you can do it. That offices, for example, even look at cities like San Francisco, that they're having a tough time getting people to come back to work because so many of the workers feel so comfortable doing it. And I guess that's the advantage of being an entrepreneur. Explain a little bit, because you are an entrepreneur, you own a different business, you're an investor, and you help different people with the marketing. Explain possibly a transition that people can make to be able to have that freedom to work where they want, when they want, and with who they want.
Yeah, I think, and let me know if you agree, but I think the first step is just to get started. I remember when I finished my master's, I said, okay, I want to be a business owner. And I did a list of the things I needed to do to get started with that. And then I just kept rolling. But the hardest thing, if I'm honest with you, Jeffrey, is just getting started, because it's scary. It's scary to not know if your income is going to be or matching what you actually have as an employee, right? And so you just need to make a plan and have projections, and then also be aware that if you have certain goals that you don't meet, maybe then it's this time to move into the different project, right? But if you don't have those goals, then it's really, really hard to be able to know if you're going into, in circles, or if you're moving forward in your business ideas and actually accomplishing something. Right now, I'm in an interesting phase of business. And I am starting a nonprofit. And so one thing I was telling my husband was, I just feel like I'm going in circles. And he said, well, that's because when you're getting started with a new idea, the little things matter, but it doesn't feel like you're moving anywhere. So having those goals, so you can actually look back and say, okay, I finished my logo. Okay, I'm working on the website. Okay, those little things that are not yet revenue generating, but will in the future, looking back and checking them off so you're moving forward.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times, you're starting now, which means you haven't done a nonprofit before. Anytime you start anything new, I think people sometimes think that you have to have everything in line, you have to have everything working perfectly, Well, if you do that, it's too late. You know, it's so many times that it's the imperfectness of the process that where you learn what you have to do. And if you try to get everything done beforehand, you may find that the market doesn't want what you have. So you're so much better to get started. I agree 100%. You do just have to get started. So as an entrepreneur coach and an entrepreneur, how do you recommend that people get started?
Yeah, I think make a list of the ideas you have, and then get started in identifying what you need in order to get that idea going. There's three things that I do. First, I have like the legal stuff that needs to happen, the logo, the LLC, all those basic stuff. And then I also have a different phase, which is the business model. People traditionally talk about a business plan. Business plans, in my opinion, are obsolete. Like they don't work because it changes the second you finish, and you never finish them because they're super long. So until you don't have the business plan done, you don't get started. And that's, it takes away a little bit of the excitement. So I like to do a business model. And the business model is bottom line, how are you going to generate revenue? And what does that revenue stream look like? And where is it going to get you? And then what are the goals for the next year, right? So that way you can actually plan on how it'll start really helping you achieve the goal of leaving your job or sustaining your lifestyle while you don't have a job because you're now an entrepreneur. So I would say focus on those two things. First, the basic things of a business and the needs. And I actually have some free resources on my website where I have a list of the things that a business needs to get started. And then the second thing is thinking about the business model and the revenue model and really think through it, because that I like to work in reverse, because if you think that way, then you start thinking about the systems and processes you need in place.
Well, there's no question that I agree with you. The business model is a much better way of going about it. In fact, one of the things that you see if you get into tech is so many times they're right. They experiment well before the plan is completed, before the technology is even completed. And some of the biggest companies in the world have switched to doing that. Every time they launch something new, they launch it what used to be would be premature, right? That they get that they get it rolling. One of the problems I think that most people have with that is it is terrifying. So how in the world do you get past that? I need to be more ready, that trap, because it's a trap. You can spend so much time and money and you may not even know if that idea works. How do you get past that terror barrier of getting rolling?
Yeah, I think the answer is you don't. And if you do, you're doing it wrong, because every time you launch something, you should always be in development mode, because the market changes, the target audience changes. I mean, I was in I am part of the North Angel Texas investors. And one of the things that they were saying as we were reviewing some of the pitches was, oh, yeah, millennials, they're getting out of college. And they're not. They were getting out of college 6 years ago. Millennials are now the workforce, but we don't look at that. And so when we're developing things, we got to always be in development mode, because like I said, everything's always changing, especially with the internet and how dynamic digital marketing and aspects like that are. If we're not always in development mode, we're going to stay behind. So I think, the idea of being perfect when you launch is a false idea, because if you are perfect, the next week, the next month, something new is going to come out and you're going to have to restart again, or you're going to have to make improvements. And if you don't have that mindset, you're going to stay behind. But more to that, I think that we have this concept that businesses have perfect systems and perfect, and like when Disney does something wrong, we're like, oh, how can that happen? But the reality is business are created by humans. And so they always have to be evolving, and there are always going to be mistakes. How we respond to that is what I think will dictate the type of business we're going to be running.
Yeah, I'll even go back to what you just said. You don't, you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. How's that? I
Mhm.
mean, um, if you are completely comfortable all the time, I think that you're not stretching and you're not growing, and that's a surefire way to be left behind. So as you go through this and you help create these plans with people, first of all, tell people what your website is, because you said that you've got some resources that help people start with that.
Yeah, so my website is It has a page. It's called Tatiana Chamorro. So my first name, my last name.com. And then if you go to /free-resources, you'll find a lot of the resources we have there. But mostly it's about, we have anything from basics of digital marketing to how to build brand authority to how to get started with your business, right? But what I do there is going through building and growing two businesses over the last 5 years. How can I help others, especially women and men too, but I focus more on women, grow, sell, and start, grow, and sell their businesses, because it's scary. It's scary, and all the questions you're asking me are right on point, and they are thoughts that you've had, that I've had. And so these resources help people kind of have like a direction. Where do I get started? Because a lot of times, even with marketing, when I sit down with someone and they ask me, hey, what do I need for my marketing? How do I make sure that this is the path I need to take? There are questions there that as a business owner, you don't know that you need to ask. And so somebody that can guide you through asking the right questions and making sure that you make the decision with all the different knowledge you need to have about making that decision, that's an important part of it.
It's interesting. You have a company that actually does events where you teach a lot of these different things, and you teach it even to agency professionals as well. And I think that the biggest difference to the entrepreneurs who can get past that terror barrier are the ones who are willing to learn, right? To admit that they don't have all the answers, that they can either go to these online courses, they can go to the live courses like what you're teaching, and even more importantly, if you have the opportunity to get a mentor. So how do your events work into teaching people to get to constantly evolve and get better at this process of understanding you don't know what you're talking about all the time?
Yeah. So to clarify, my business partner runs that event with his wife. One of the things that we focus on, right? So it's called Master Hackers. Right now, it's changing its name to the Committed. But one thing I will tell you is, whether it is right now, whether it is when you reach your first 500K in revenue, or you get to 9 million, or you surpass 9 million, right? Every stage you'll need to look to people that have been there before, and you'll need to learn different things. And if you go to those stages with the mindset of, well, I already know everything, then that's not going to help you get to the next stage. Because the thing is, and it depends where you want to be, right? If you're comfortable with 500K revenue annually, then stay there and find mentors or friends that are doing the same thing. But I think the most important part, the most beautiful thing that I have seen, is that in groups like this, we come in as entrepreneurs that have built businesses, that have been there, that have generated millions of dollars annually. And yet we come with questions. And so it's not that a group like this, it's not like the Committed will help you answer all your questions. But what it will give you is a group of people that have been there before, that can ask between one another. And between all of us, we have the answer, right? It's not that I have the answer and my business partner has the answer. It's that collectively we can find a way to find that answer.
Yeah, the mastermind concept is so powerful. The idea that you're going to come and benefit each other. What is one of the better examples of somebody that you've seen that you guys have helped out to go from start to 500,000 to almost $10 million a year in revenue? Give me an example. Well, even better, of the difference between that person and the person who stays stuck.
Yeah, so we have different models in our business. We have a franchise model for height. A lot of our franchisees have been able to increase their revenue through, in that case, it's more systems and processes oriented, because the franchise provides that for them, right? And then in the Committed, one of the things that we do is that we coach them through different questions and phases in their journey, right? I would say, and it takes back to the answer I gave you, mindset. That's the difference, because every stage is different and every stage is scary. I remember about a year ago, I had built my branding agency, and I had merged with our corporate office in Height, and I decided to step away. We had a director, we had our VP, and that is a different stage in my journey as an entrepreneur, and it's a scary one. And let me tell you that I had never felt that. You often hear entrepreneurs say, yeah, well, you build your business, you exit it, and then you feel like you lost your identity, or you feel like you had a baby that just left you. And I experienced it, and I experienced every journey that really relates to becoming a mom and seeing my son turn into a teenager. And I haven't seen him go to college, but obviously in a different way, I felt that with my business. And so I think that the difference there is, as you start to grow, you start to think, you gotta battle the ego. that is something that you got to work on as an entrepreneur to bring yourself down. Because if you don't work on that, you will find yourself in this cycle of always feeling like you're the smartest person in the room. And some people like that. And if you feel that way, find another room because you definitely need to be challenged.
I, challenge is the name of the game anymore. You know, you look at how technology is just ramping up and just completely making certain things obsolete. If you're not growing, you are in trouble. So you talked about the mindset, and there's a lot of victim mindset right now. Victim mindset is everywhere. Everybody can come up with an excuse on why they're not uh, why they're not succeeding. How do you get a person that possibly has that fear? Because fear can really debilitate you and bring you to your knees if you're not careful. Or do you just really focus on the people that come in with that ability to get past their fears?
I definitely like to observe people to identify. One of the things I do a lot of mentorship for students. There's really no hidden agenda there. I like to just help students who have business ideas, entrepreneurship. And one of the things that I notice is certain patterns that you develop since a young age when you're becoming an entrepreneur that will really dictate if you are, let's say, seasoning yourself to grow when you become an even bigger entrepreneur, right? So, for example, having structure in your day to day, showing up to meetings, when you meet someone, them handing you the business card, emailing you within 24 hours, just certain habits that you need to develop early on in order to set you up for like the best version of yourself as an entrepreneur. I think those are the things that I look at, but most importantly, at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, you need to be also. I found out, anyways, that I love fearful things. I'm not the type of person that's gonna. Well, I would probably jump off an airplane, but just certain things, right? I like to measure that. But in entrepreneurship, risk makes me excited. When I am bored, when I am doing nothing in my schedule, I get scared because I'm like, okay, what's next? Which is the reason why I'm starting this nonprofit. I'm going to tell you right now, I am starting the nonprofit and I'm meeting a lot of people who have run and opened and grown their nonprofits. And I'm overwhelmed and I'm also, intimidated. And I have run and grown my business, but when we're talking about nonprofits, I know nothing about it. And so I'm having these meetings and it's bringing me down again to say, okay, I'm starting from scratch. And in this arena, I am not an expert and I am looking for experts and mentors. And so being able to find places where you feel uncomfortable to make sure that you find people that can guide you there. But when you're finding those people, have that ego down, right? Because you are not the expert there and it's okay to not be the expert.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It, there's certain people that I guess we can just be transparent. There's certain people that possibly just aren't cut out to be an entrepreneur. That if that fear, it's not the absence of fear, it's proceeding in the face of fear that really turns you into the ability to have the freedom. Freedom comes with a price. And if you can't pay that price, then perhaps it's just something that you should stay as an employee. I'll let you give this last word on it. What is it that really motivates you as an entrepreneur? You're still a young woman, at least younger than me. So I know that you have a teenager, but just barely turning a teenager. So you're a mom, you're a Latina, you're a business owner, you have an advanced degree. What powers somebody like you to achieve all the different things that you're working on?
I think it's, I'll say my family, but your question is something that if you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, you should have an answer to before you become one. Because I'll tell you this, when I started, I thought, my father is an entrepreneur, my grandfather was an entrepreneur, all my uncles are entrepreneurs. And I thought I wanted to be an entrepreneur because that's just what I had to do. And then I became one and I realized the pressure. I realized the responsibility that you have with people. I realized that even when you become a business owner, you always have to be becoming a better version of yourself for others because managing people is hard. People are different in every way, and you have to continue to understand how you are so you can then be same as parenting. I love to compare with parenting. And then even in different stages of business, that changes, right? So for me, finding what is it that we have a thing called what are you committed to at Height? which is hence the mastermind, the committed, right? And then our summit called the Commitment Summit. So you'll see the pattern there. But what are you committed to? And that cannot be, well, I want, freedom, because what is freedom? Then you become free. And then is that really, I want to be successful? That's what is success to you? And so understanding that was one of the things that I did maybe within a year of becoming an entrepreneur. And I started off defining that I'm committed to helping others. And then I realized a year later, that's even still too broad. So today, my commitment is I want to invest in people so they can live their dreams. And what does that mean? I love that because it really resembles in anything I do, whether I'm a business owner and a leader, or I'm doing a nonprofit, or even as a mother. One of the things that I'm applying right now is I'm showing my son how to do time management. So we're opening his calendar and we're doing, okay, you're going to do math in the morning. So I want you to put it there, right? So just my investment, whether it is monetary or time or whatever that looks like, to help others live their dream of entrepreneurship. That is what I want to do. And that is the reason I do what I'm doing today.
Well, super grateful. It's wonderful to have the different perspectives. And this is my first person that has actually broadcast from Nicaragua, one of the most beautiful countries on the planet. And I know that you're super proud of your country. Tell everybody where to find you.
You can find me going to my website. I am also on Instagram, first name, last name. LinkedIn, if you want to follow more professional posts. They're very similar, but I love to make them more personal, so you'll see a little bit. If you are a Latina female that speaks Spanish, we have a podcast that's called Modern Matriarchs. It's in Spanglish, and I do it with my business partner, Karen. And it's just a little bit of funny because we like to say that we're funny.
So you're saying it's entertaining, the Spanglish, that's great. So super glad to have you. And I'm sorry that you're in such a miserable place right now for the summer, going beach to beach. That is a wonderful experience. Thank you for being on Networking Star.
Thank you for having me.